Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
The most holy name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom all holy praise is due, the Lord of the worlds. We forever praise and we thank Him for coming to us and raising in our midst a divine leader, teacher, and guide. His Messiah, the exalted Christ, the Lamb of God, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. We can never thank Master Farad Muhammad enough. We can never thank the most honorable Elijah Muhammad enough for giving to us today our illustrious big brother, our friend, the champion of freedom, justice, and equality for the poor and the oppressed, black men of America and the world. I'm speaking of no other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Brothers and sisters, friends and family, I would like to greet you in the ancient greeting words of peace and perpetual paradise. We say it in the nation's greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
This lecture today, we alluded to on part one of our last lecture, called the Theogony, Self-Creation and the Birth of the Black God. I alluded to on that we were going to come with this one, called the scientific evidence of the splitting of the moon. Mars, the moon, and the angry black god. We're going into dealing with a particular aspect of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching that deals with a subject that most people have tried to dismiss, tried to say it was fallacy, tried to say it was made up. The moon and the earth, there's a relationship between the two. The scientists have not been able to ascertain that knowledge. Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well as his chief student and witness bearer, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, has taught us that the earth and the moon was once one planet. I'm going into the history of the black man today as taught by Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that is going to unravel, to unleash, and to uncover wisdom that has been hidden on this planet that people have now unearthed, that is giving us knowledge, the black man and woman's history that goes beyond what so-called scholars of African history have tried to dismiss the messenger in.
Come on now.
I want to start with this book here. If you don't have this book in your library, you don't have any book at all.
Yes, sir.
The illuminating, earth-shattering, classic piece, Message to the Black Man in America.
Beautiful teacher.
There's not a book anywhere that you would want to read that will give you the supreme wisdom, the highest zenith of all divine revelation that you will find in this book here, Message to the Black Man in America, by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Another book you might want to get is his other powerful book that he wrote, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote, Our Savior Has Arrived. We're going to be coming from these books, and of course, Theology of Time. And this book here, I will definitely be coming out of this book with the scientific evidence from one of our great authors and noted scholars in the Nation of Islam, our great writer who has written many books bearing witness to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, my brother True Islam, Wesley X, who wrote the Book of God, the revised edition. I advise anyone interested in this subject of consciousness, of blackness, of nationalism, what have you, interested in anything dealing with blackness or the consciousness of the black man, it would do you well to get the books of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The nation of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Nation of Islam, have always been the custodians of black thought. Don't get it twisted. Now, I want to start with page 31, Message to the Black Man. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, It is Allah God himself, his will and his purpose, that we shall know ourselves. Therefore, he came himself to teach us the knowledge of self. Who better knowing of who we are than God himself? He has declared that we are descendants of the Asian black nation and of the tribe of Shabazz. Who is the tribe of Shabazz? The tribe of Shabazz originally was that tribe that came with the earth, or this part, 66 trillion years ago, in a great explosion that divided it into two parts, one called Earth, one called Moon. Of course, he said we were the first to discover the fertile Nile Valley, the holy city of Mecca, and also that dissatisfied scientists 50,000 years ago, Shabazz, that took us down to subsequently into the jungles of East Asia, which you call today, scholars call Africa. We're going to deal with all that.
Come on now.
25,000 year cycles.
Let's get to it.
50,000 universal history of cycles that we were written. And also we're going to go back to the 66 trillion years ago, and we're going to go back even before that. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the earth and the moon was once one planet. The earth is 24,896 miles, approximately 25,000 miles.
That's right.
The earth's diameter is 7,926 miles. The square mileage is 196,940,000 square miles, with about 57,255,000 square miles of water. Land, and 139,685,000 square miles of water. Is that right? 75% of the earth is contained or contains water. Only 25% of it is land. Of course, there's some deep science to that, but that's on a whole nother lecture. But if you look at our flag of Islam, sun, moon, and star, the moon is in our flag. Now, Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the moon in our flag represents equality. The moon also represents the woman. Every 28 days, the moon makes a rotation around the earth in accord with the woman's menstrual cycle that happens every 28 to 30 days. He said the moon's representation also represents the pouring forth of the earth's or nation's blood every 28 to 30 days, in accord with the moon's rotation around the earth every 28 days. That moon represents equality. We, of course, are taught that the black man and woman has been, or have not had equality in 400 years. We have been deprived of equality. The earth and the moon was once one planet, and in the great explosion that happened 66 trillion years ago, all of the water, the moon was blasted away, and all of the water that was on that part poured to this part.
Teach.
Is that right? The reason why we have a moon, the moon and the sun has a magnetic attraction to the earth. If it wasn't for, according to the law of physics and science, because of the earth, the water, if it was not for the magnetic pull and attraction of the earth, the sun and the moon upon the earth's waters, that causes them to shift back and forth, the waters would seek its own level and drown out civilization. So it is the moon that gives us the clearest sign of balance and equality that keeps the earth's waters in check. That's why in our flag of Islam, the moon is symbolized and represents equality. Now, look at this. 66 trillion years ago, the black man was here.
Yes. Yes, sir.
At that time, there was no brown, there was no red, there was no yellow man, there was no white man.
Come on now.
It was only the original man.
Teach, beloved.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us there were 5 billion of the original black man on the planet, all divided into 12 tribes each. And there was a scientist that was at the head of each one of those 12 tribes. Okay?
Okay.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, as well as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, who is the chief exponent and witness bearer of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, taught us that at that time on the planet, the people, the original peoples of the earth, knew God. There was no such thing as God being a mystery at that time. God walked among the people and they knew him, which bears witness to the Bible, where it says that God walked among the people and the people knew him as God. Then there was a particular specified time when it appeared that God had absented himself or withdrew his presence, and he's been a carefully guarded secret. He's taught us that we are of the Asiatic black nation of the earth and the tribe of Shabazz. Now, look at this. Shabazz was the first to discover the fertile Nile Valley, the holy city of Mecca. We had always lived there. There never was a time when the black man was not present. Not only did we create the planet, we came with it, has always been a part of it, and existed before it. In the primal, pre-cosmic space, the elements of darkness in the atoms and the molecules and the compounds was the first form of man before the atom burst forth and matured into a black man. Now, that was over 78 trillion years ago, eons of time. The first recorded record of the black man's history is 78 trillion years when the atom began to move in and out of darkness. But that is not the beginning of the black man, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. There is no beginning to the original man, because no one knows where he began or started, because there was no measuring device at that time that could determine or be able to measure the diameter through the cosmic primordial material space to determine where the black man actually began. So we say he has no beginning, because no one knows the very beginning of the atom by which started the black man into existence or himself.
Beautiful teachings.
Now, we used to write history in cycles of time. This is a big, big subject, and I hope in 2 hours. It takes, Elijah Muhammad said, it takes 6 hours to teach this subject. So I got to cut through some things, and I may take some shortcuts, because I won't be able to give you all into detail everything, because it takes about 6 hours, he said, to teach this divine black man's history.
Give us some.
So I'm only going to give it to you in 2 hours, and I hope by the grace of Master Farad Muhammad that I'll be successful. Now, 66 trillion years ago, not billions, not millions, but trillions, this scientist by the name Jatu, out of the tribe of Shabazz, in the theology of time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this God had power over heaven and earth. Let me read to you something real quick. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we change at times with changes, but we never end. No end written for us, meaning black man and woman. You will find, you cannot find where the black man will end up one day and have no world. This is theology of time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said if he ends up one day without a world, then there will be nothing. It will be the same as it was with the first life that was created in darkness to itself. There is no God nowhere that can take hold of the black man's wisdom and outstrip him of his own wisdom. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, once upon a time a black man tried to destroy the black man. So Allah taught me, but he failed. He couldn't destroy himself because he was the creator. So he left some of us back here right on the earth. That was a long time ago. God taught me it was in the making of the moon. In his effort to destroy the black man, he caused a new world of thought to come in. He wanted his teaching to go, like the one that went into Africa 50,000 years ago. Our Savior has arrived, page 119, last paragraph. And our Savior has arrived. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, every 25,000 years, there's a change in the wisdom and knowledge of the black man's history and civilization. It is brought about by a black man who is God. As we covered in previous lectures that the black man is God. Go get the theology. Now, in these 25,000 year cycles of history,
Come on now.
There's a new God every 25,000 years. One rules. He cannot pattern after the wisdom of the previous God. He brings a new wisdom and builds on the wisdom of the previous God, yet he cannot borrow his wisdom. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us every 25,000 years there's a new God who is to come to bring a new wisdom for that cycle. His belief, teaching, and theology was different than the God that went before him.
Wow.
Is that right? Now, this is what he taught brought about a beautiful change in the civilization of the black man. That's why throughout our ancient history, you find this wisdom of the black man, or this history, or that history of our civilization, and this ancient history of the black man, a continuum. But it is not the same black God, okay? But a different God, black God, that comes, who is the original man, who writes every 25,000 years a new history in accord with the circumference of our planet, in accord with its region of the poles, which change every 25,000 years, marking a sign in our history. We got to get into ancient chemical, Egypt, before it's over, to show how that 25,000 history Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, so that mother book is written and encoded within the hieroglyphics of the Great Pyramid. Now, look at this. This particular scientist, by the name of Shabazz, out of the tribe of Shabazz. Shabazz, Shah meaning great, Baz meaning people, great people, God tribe, or great takers. That's what Shabazz means. He wanted the people, black man at that time, to speak a particular dialect or language, and he couldn't bring it about. He wanted to bring about an unnatural impossibility, or I would say, pardon me, a natural impossibility he tried to enforce on the people at that time. You know that if you travel throughout the earth as the original man moved and dominated the planet, moved throughout the planet, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us the atmosphere has an effect on your speech. The air, the atmosphere has an effect on your speech, in your dialect. Just for instance, you from New York, you lived up here all your life, you were born in Newark, New Jersey. We have a certain slang, we have a certain dialect. You go down south and live for 15 years, 20 years, you come back, your dialect is not quite the same because of the atmosphere. So it is with the original man at that time. He wanted his teaching to go, this scientist out of the tribe of Shabazz, Jatu, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaks of him in page 31 of Message of the Black Man and Theology of Time. So the people at that time would not obey the wisdom of this God. They wouldn't submit. Of course, he got angry, he went off, and he drilled a shaft. He started to drill a shaft near the center of the then called moon or earth, and filled it with high explosives. The explosives that this scientist of God used was 100 times the dynamite that the white man uses today. In fact, if you look at the atomic bomb and the mass destruction that it caused, imagine 1,000 times the atomic bomb. That was the magnitude of the explosion of the splitting of the moon 66 trillion years ago. Now, when this scientist drilled a shaft near the center of the then called Earth or moon, filled it with high explosives, you know that the Earth is 7,926 miles in diameter, approximately 8,000 miles. The radius is 1/2 the diameter, which is 4,000 miles. This man drilled nearly 4,000 miles into the center of the Earth, which is 3,000 miles, and filled it with hot dynamite and explosives and set it off, and blasted the piece that you call moon today away. Right? All of the water, vegetation, life, the people that even was on the moon died or were destroyed. He caused a cataclysmic flood as a result of that explosion, and a horrific, gigantic blaze of fire also in that explosion. I'm going to get into the ancient literary accounts and the scientific evidence to bear witness to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, so you don't think we making up some kind of foolishness here. the black man put the moon out there. In fact, everything that you see comes from the black man.
That's right.
Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the black man is so, God is so wise, the original man, that all we had to do was think on the darkness of the auditory, with our auditory systems, think on the very darkness of space, and from it produce stars some trillion and billions of years down the line. That's why the Holy Quran says, and we, plural, we adorn the lower heavens with stars. Is that right? We did that. And the Quran attests to that. Now, in that explosion, the people that was on the moon, they died. They didn't live long, of course. That water fell to this part. Now, in that cataclysmic, gigantic, enormous thermonuclear event that scientists have recorded, the moon was blasted 12,000 miles away. And the original pocket that we was in, we fell 36,000 miles and dropped into the pocket that we are now in, and the earth began to rotate in the pocket that the earth now occupies. Now, let's go into the scientific evidence of this. How does this connect to the Mars, the moon, and the angry black god? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, of course, Earth and the moon was one planet. It was bigger than it was then, and it had more water, because prior to the explosion, the Earth was not 25,000 miles in circumference, it was 35,000 miles. And the scientists before the explosion wrote history in accord with the 35,000 mile circumference of the Earth at that time, before the splitting of the moon from the Earth. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said originally, the planet that you call Mars was our satellite or moon. How many people knew that? Mars was our satellite, was our moon. Look at this. Let's deal with Mars first. 141,500,000 miles from the sun. Richard Hoagland, who deals with Mars, wrote about some of the monuments on Mars, some of the glass tunnels they found in the southern region of Sidonia. They found an African black face carved into the surface of the southern region of Sidonia. They found pyramids with a geometric figure carved into one of the pyramids. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that when the white man gets to Mars, before you knew anything about Mars, for 70 years in our lessons, it says Mars, the inhabited planet. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the one who taught the world and the scientists that Mars was inhabited by a black civilization. The black man lived on Mars. Some 8 to 9 feet tall black men lives on the planet Mars, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. He said they are like us, but the only difference between us and them, our civilization is more superior than theirs. But they show signs of civilization. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, when the white man gets to Mars, he won't find no mark of his. He will not find a civilization of his own, for it is our mark and our Mars and our people, meaning original, that he would find on the planet. And the white man is bearing witness every day. Richard Hoagland and other scientists and astronomers and astrophysicists are coming to the conclusion every day from their own subject matter and study that there's life on Mars and intelligence on Mars, bearing witness to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, that a black civilization lives on Mars that we put there. Go get some of the movies that bear witness. The Mission to Mars, or Don Cheadle bears witness to. Go get that movie. Now look at this. In the explosion 66 trillion years ago, Mars got affected. You notice on the northern region of Mars, there is no crater destruction. If you go back and dig up all the science, on the southern region of Mars, there is water erosion. There is heavy cratering on the southern region of Mars where the civilization is built at. How come all the craters craters, rocks, flood erosion is on the southern region, because the civilization there built their civilization in remembrance of that cataclysmic event that happened 66 trillion years ago. That's why the pyramids, the glass tunnels in the face is on the southern region, because on the southern region is the part of Mars that got heavily hit with debris and also leftover remnants of our planet Earth that was exploded 66 trillion years. Mars also got some of the Earth's water that poured not only from the moon, but part of that water also poured on Mars. That's why your scientists can't figure out how come it talks about in a lot of their research how Mars had an unusual amount of flooding of water that affected the southern region, which bears witness there was a cataclysmic event that resulted in Mars craters, its rocks, and also the debris, and also heavy water flooding erosion on the southern region of Cydonia, where the black civilization that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us built on that planet, bearing witness that Mars was once our satellite. It also got affected in that explosion. Go get Richard Hoagland's book dealing with Mars to bear witness to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Mars was affected in the explosion. Now look at this. Michael Overton, Tom Van Flanders, who wrote the book Dark Matters, Missing Planets. Der-Chung Lee, out of the University of Michigan, bears witness. A. Ringwood. I'll give you scientific evidence for all you fools that want to say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made something up. I'm going to bring the Quran to bear witness, and the Bible too. According to your astronomers, they call it Bode's Law. Between Mars and Jupiter, they say, according to these scientists, that there's space between Mars and Jupiter. And there, they say, once lived a Saturn-sized planet that existed between Mars and Jupiter. Did you know that the asteroid and comet belt, there's an asteroid and comet belt that exists between Mars and Jupiter? The scientists are starting to say that that asteroid and comet belt that exists between Mars and Jupiter is the leftover remnants and debris of a planet that exploded millions of years ago. Let's read. So let me show you something.
Come on now.
Within that space, there are now asteroids. Discovered in Daniel Titus in 1772, discovered that each of the 6 planets, known planets at the time, was roughly twice the distance of the previous one from the sun. With one exception. Between Mars and Jupiter, there's a gap just the right size to hold another planet. Within that space, there are now asteroids. In 1972, Canadian astronomer Michael Overton argued convincingly that these asteroids or minor planets were the remnants of a Saturn-sized planet that had once existed there but exploded. That's what white folks saying, man. He said the debris that was blasted out into the solar system today are still there. Mars was likely the satellite of that planet, bearing witness to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that taught us that Mars originally was the Earth's moon. When it was in its original pocket, before it was blasted into the pocket that it is now in. That asteroid belt is the leftover remnants and debris of our planet that the God scientists out of the tribe of Shabazz had blew up or exploded 66 trillion years ago, and that leftover debris from our planet, our proto-Earth, or originally, is still there. Look at this.
Come on now. Beautiful teacher.
Saturn has 2 moons.
Yes, sir.
And Saturn was affected also in the explosion. On one of Saturn's moons, do you know, they never show that on one of Saturn's moons, there's a dark, carbonaceous dark soot that is on one of Saturn's moons. Why? Because in that interspatial, intergalactic explosion that took place, it affected not only Mars, and a moon was made, but also one of Saturn's own moons was affected in that explosion that the God scientists out of the tribe of Shabazz caused 66 trillion years ago. In that explosion, he killed almost everyone except one tribe that was left on the planet to resettle the planet, which was the tribe of Shabazz, was left here to resettle this planet 66 trillion years ago. Now, look at this. The scientists have studied the canyons, the craters in the earth, the KT boundary, the hills, the ravines, the canyons, the rifts, and they have come to the conclusion, and they are starting to say, bearing witness again to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, that a part or piece of the earth is missing. That's what they're beginning to say.
Damn.
The earth is depleted of 3 elements which they found on the moon. Those 3 elements is chromium, manganese, and vanadium. Those 3 elements bear witness that the earth, the moon, derived from the upper lower mantle, mantle, inner mantle of the earth's crust. The KT boundary, which is the carbon data that they found around the rocky areas where they say water flowed into, and also the Atlantic Ocean. According to these scientists, they said as a result of that explosion, which they can't explain, they are saying that a cataclysmic giant explosion had to, or something of a great giant magnitude had to happen to cause 2,000 cubic kilometers of water to pour into the ocean. How could that have happened? Look at this. Der-Chung Lee from Ann Arbor, Michigan, said, and I quote, from his study of the tungsten rock sample isotopes that were taken from the moon that compares to and is the same as the rocks of the earth, says that the earth went through or had its big bang or explosion. They're again proving that the earth and the moon was once one planet. And a cataclysmic thermonuclear event was caused, an unnatural event was caused by a scientist on this planet. Look at this. Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan, Apollo 16 and 17 that went to the moon. When they sampled some of the dust of the moon and smelled the rocks, Gene Cernan said, I think of Apollo 16, and he said, and I quote, that the moon's rocks smelled like a carbine. Remember, Cernan, Gene Cernan, Neil Armstrong, and Buzz Aldrin, all of those astronauts were experienced in the handling of firearms. So when they went to the moon, they said that this moon rock and its dust smelled like a carbine, gunpowder. Come on, man. Gunpowder. Why gun? The reason why they smelt it, because the residue of what we use is still on the earth, on the earth and on the moon today. That's why they said it, because of that cataclysmic explosion that we set off. They brought back rocks from the moon, studied them, and they found that the rock samples from the moon are the same as the rocks of the earth, and now they're saying that the earth and the moon was once one planet. Bearing witness again to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
My God.
The brachial rock samples.
Beautiful teacher.
There are brachious rock samples, which they can't figure out. Molten rocks that are broken. They can't figure out what they are, where they come from. They say some aliens brought that here. No aliens brought that here. The brachious rock samples are a result of when the scientist set off the explosion. He caused a giant fire and deluge of flood on the planet, and the brachial rocks are a result of unusual high extreme temperature that of the earth going through a ferment by which the rocks molted and turned into what you call brachial rocks. Molten rocks, which they can't understand, happened as a result of an unusual heating or temperature of the earth's surface or material. Now, there's the evidence there scientifically. Asteroid belt, the moon rocks, tungsten isotope rock samples, Mars affected, the KT boundary, the carbonaceous soot that's on one of Saturn's moons, the canyons and ravines, the hills, bear witnesses also suggest that there were some people on this planet that were involved in some of the highest scientific technology on this planet that had ever lived. This is why scientists talk about the lost city of Atlantis. We're going to get into that to show how it connects to that explosion when I get into the literary accounts, which I'm getting ready to get into now. This explosion that happened 66 trillion years ago by one of our scientists is recorded through every ancient literary account on the planet. What people don't understand when they talk about mythologies, all mythologies are not false. Mythologies are nothing but legends, histories, stories that are passed down from generation through generation, told in symbolic manner. That's all mythologies are. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Look at this. Let's go into the literary accounts. We just dealt with the scientific evidence. The Tupinambá Indians in Brazil, according to their literary account, according to them, their god called Monan, who like Jatu out of Shabazz, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, had power over heaven and earth. And he caused the splitting of the earth, the moon from the earth. And the god Monan, according to the Tupinambá legend of the Indians of Brazil, this god caused a deluge of flood and fire on the earth, just as the god 66 trillion years had produced on this planet. That's in the account of the Brazilian Tupinambá Indians. According to the Yamana legend, the same account is played over again. According to the Norse theology, it talks about the giant god Surt. Surt caused a cataclysmic event on the planet that caused a flood and a fire that split the planet in two as a result of that explosion. The Sumerian doctrine speaks also of this god scientist, Shabazz. According to the Sumerians, the head of the gods were called, the gods first of all were called the Anunnaki. The head of the Sumerian gods. Go get Zechariah Sitchin's book, The Stairway to Heaven.
Come on now.
Or Genesis Revisited. Get both of those books. in its book, he talks about the Sumerian legend about a god named Marduk. Marduk, according to this legend, the primordial proto-earth was called by the Sumerians Tiamat or Tiamat. According to this legend, Tiamat's waters rebelled against Marduk. Marduk, to get Tiamat or the waters of the earth in control, he thrust his spear into Tiamat, and with it he filled it with an explosive, which was his arrow, according to the legend of the Sumerians, and he split Tiamat, or the proto-earth, in half, and one part became the sky, and the other part became the earth that you know of today. This is in the legend also of the Sumerians, which bears witness again to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching of the splitting of the moon from the earth over 66 trillion years ago. Look at this. This is also in the legend of the history of the lost city of Atlantis. According to this history, Atlantis was at war, and some cataclysmic, giant, horrific event took place, an explosion, and the civilization that was once there in the Atlantic Ocean, Atlantis, was sank under the waters. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan taught us, the scientists, we had the ability to sink valleys and civilizations and raise mountains on the planet. And they're finding, if you read David Hatcher Childress's book, if you go read Graham Hancock's book, or Raymond Bernard, it talks about it in their books. And go get Eric Van Dyken's book, The Return of the Gods. He speaks of a people on the planet that was so technologically advanced, they was involved in space travel and aerodynamics, and had flying machines, and had the ability on this planet to put mountains on this planet. That was not no aliens, it wasn't no white folks. It was the original black man and woman, the gods and goddesses of this planet, who had did that. That's why the Quran says that we put mountains on the earth. In the Bible, Psalms chapter 90, verse 2, it said the lords or the gods put mountains on the planet. What are the purpose of a mountain? The mountains are all different sizes, and people try to say, your scientists say, well, during the Ice Age, the water melted and it hollowed out all the gullies and pushed up the dirt, and that's how mountains was made. That's false. That's not how mountains was made. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it was our scientists. At that time, at one time, did you know there was no mountains on the planet? The earth was smooth and round, and there was no mountains at that particular time. So the gods or the scientists thought that it was not educational. So they put mountains on the earth. They put bombs in the earth. They were trying to perfect a bomb. The same type of drill bomb that the Army, U.S. Army, United States government used on the Iraqis. A bomb with a drill attached to it, and when the drill drills down into the earth, it is time to explode. That's the same type of technology that the black gods or scientists had, a bomb with a drill attached, and when the drill strikes, it is time to go off to bring up a mountain the size that the person wants. See, those mountains was caused from explosions of unknown origin, not from some natural event. They were caused by unnatural occurrences acted on by the God scientists of this planet. You were asked the question, well, how, somebody would say, well, it was the waters that did that, the Ice Age did that. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked the question in the public. He said, how did some of those rocks that are on top of these mountains get up there? There are rocks in the earth that all the oceans on the earth cannot lift. How did they get on top of some of these mountains? It was our scientists that put mountains on the earth. If the white man cannot figure out the technology of Egypt, India, all of the ancient civilizations that we built, that are so technologically advanced and aligned with certain stars in our universe that he cannot figure out, then why is it hard for us to believe that there was something else that we put in the earth that he cannot duplicate? You see, we gave him all of the wisdom that he has. Let me read you something real quick. In this article by Brother Robert Muhammad, Final Call newspaper, it says, in Blacks in Science, Ancient and Modern, called by Ivan Van Sertima, it states that the discovery by Dr. Khalil Messiah indicates that the Egyptians were experimenting with flying machines as early as the 4th and the 3rd century BC. In the same region of Africa, in a small town called Al-Bayana, just north of Luxor in Egypt, in the ancient temple of Abydos, originally built by the black Egyptian ruler Seti I and completed by his son Ramses II, there are 3,000-year-old hieroglyphic drawings of what clearly appears to be a high-tech flying machine. You can get this on www.crystallinks.com/ancientaircraft.html. A very informative book titled The Technology of the Gods, The Incredible Sciences of the Ancients, authored by David Hatcher Childress, documents the discovery in 1875 of a 4th century BC text known as the Vamanika Sastra, which was written by Maharishi Bhardwaj in the Temple of India, which talks about how, according to this author, the text was taken from an even older book which deals with the operation and technical schematics, including information on the steering, propulsion systems, and construction blueprints of ancient airships known in ancient India by the Vimanas. And as Raymond Bernard points out and other scholars, that the ancient civilization of Atlantis and their contemporary Mu and Lemuria was a black civilization. Not no crackers, not no white folks, it was us. There was another civilization that alludes to in some of our temples called the Assyrian civilization. The Assyrian civilization is reportedly, or was, the contemporaries of Atlantis, Mu, and Lemuria. And the Assyrian black civilization is pre-dynastic Egypt. Pre-dynastic Egyptian black civilization. Now, look at this. The moon and the earth, one being one planet, is written in all the ancient accounts. We sunk the planet, we sunk civilizations under the water that they're now discovering. We did that. Atlantis, the black Assyrian civilization, Mu and Lemuria, were all contemporaries of those ancient black civilizations that lived on the planet. They call them Atlantis. Of course, it was Socrates. They got the history of Atlantis from Solon. Solon learned the history of Atlantis from the ancient Egyptian records. And in its records, that ancient Egyptian record speaks of pre-dynastic ancient Egypt, which was Shabazz, going back originally to the black man and woman who populated the planet. Now, let's get into this a little deeper. Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us every 25,000 years on the earth comes a change. Every 50,000 years is a universal change. There were some scientists that could see 150,000 years. There were some that could see 50,000 years, which is 2 periods of 25,000 year cycles. Look at this. When the God scientist did what he did, he caused a new world of thought to come in that had never been before. After that thought or that idea came in, the gods hid their knowledge. The knowledge of God was hidden among the 12 scientists. That's why the lesson said, who is that mystery God? There is not a mystery God. The Son of Man has searched for that mystery God for trillions of years and was unable to find a mystery God. So they agreed that the only God is the Son of Man. And they waste no time searching for that does not exist. Right? Now, 50,000 years ago, there was another scientist, Council of the Gods. It's always 12, and one is the head of the council, the supreme being. These gods are mentioned in the Bible and Quran and mentioned through all the ancient literature. These 12 major and 12 minor scientists. Every time a prophet or God is to warn a prophet or people, or civilization that is going to be destroyed, that God and the angels or scientists are going to destroy, he raises up one from among the people. One of the 12 major and minor scientists. What happens? The scientists go out among the people to read the thoughts of the people. If you understand what thought is, your brain oscillates, or there's magnetic brain waves that vibrate from your brain. Your brain is an oscillator that sends off high magnetic electrical currents and waves into the atmosphere. The atmosphere, the universe, is nothing more than the Akashic record. It is the recording of all of the thoughts of the gods. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us there's no such thing as no spirits flying up in space. He said the only spirits there is that you could say that flying in space are the mind, the righteous mind of the God scientists. The thoughts and the ideas of the God has always been recorded.
That's right.
Excuse me. The universe records the actual thoughts and the ideas of God. This is why every now and then the scientists can peek into some of the wisdom of the previous God. And this is why when you look at the very DNA of man, your DNA is nothing more than the recording of ancient wisdom. The DNA is the recording of nothing more than wisdom and that ancestor that preceded you. Their thoughts is in you, and in you is nothing more than the culmination of the continuum of those beings that proceeded in your line. Now, look at this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us of a mother book. The earth is 24,896 miles, approximately 25,000 miles. The scientists write history in accord with that 25,000 year miles of the earth. That history is in accord with that a year for every single mile. Also, our history is not only in accord with that, but written in accord with the hours in our day and also our poles. So he taught us there are 23 gods or scientists that go out among the people to listen to the people think. They go and listen or tune in to the actual atmosphere itself that contains the magnetic waves and thinking of the people, and they come back and they put it in a book. How do these scientists write history? The regular white man has taught the world to write history after it's done. These men write history. Then they manipulate circumstances and events to bring about the histories. They produce the histories that have already been seen and written down the line. This is why, brothers and sisters, we have to be careful. Because whenever you have a child, your child is nothing more than the culmination of your thoughts. Your child can be affected by the past events of that which you do. You're writing the history of your own children. When you do unrighteous acts, there are events and circumstances that are produced from the unrighteous acts and events of mothers and fathers. Therefore, you're producing or causing your children to walk into unfortunate circumstances because of the evil of that which you have produced.
Wow.
So it is with the divine scientists. They write the histories and then walk, as Honorable Minister Farrakhan says, into those histories. This is why in Egyptology it is taught that one must study the 7 levels of the arts and sciences for 42 years, by which one then reaches his godhood, where he has the ability of the God scientist, the power of hypnosis, controlling people's minds, the power of prophecy, predicting future events, and the power of controlling weather. Is that right?
Wow.
And that's the power of the gods, the ability to control the minds of people, predicting future events, and controlling weather. It shouldn't be hard for us to believe that the black man or our scientists control the weather, rain, hail, snow, earthquake. If the white man with hyperdimensional weather-making machines could produce miniature tsunamis, little miniature weather events. He learned in Vietnam how to go up into the clouds and seed the clouds and make it rain. If he can do all of that, what else can the scientists, the black man, Allah, God, and the scientists or angelic hosts do on this planet? Now, look at this. Whenever a portion of that mother book is to be revealed, one of the scientists reveal a portion of it to a prophet or an apostle from among the people and raises them up. The scientist contacts the prophet by one of 3 ways: word of mouth, in a vision, or in a dream. Now, this 25,000 year cycle of the black man's history, 50,000 years ago was the fall of the black man. It started 66 trillion years ago. 50,000 years ago, one of our scientists by the name of Shabazz, who was of the Council of the Gods. There always been 12. This particular scientist wanted us to become tough, hard. He wanted to produce subsequently a new black man, different than the black man that was already on the planet. So he couldn't get the other scientists to agree with him. They said, you can, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad so beautifully put, he said, you can make your man, but you can't make him here. At that time, we didn't live in Africa. We lived in the, what you call the northern section of what you call South, which is closer to the Sudan, Ethiopia, what you call Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, Holy City, all that was the Garden of Eden. That was originally where we lived prior to 50,000 years ago. Now me pointing out this particular history by no means is the beginning of the black man. That's not. I'm pointing out a particular aspect of the history, of an aspect of our father's history in the descent and the evolution of the black man's science and wisdom in changing civilization. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we can change at times. Well, our civilization never ends. But we can change. We have the ability to change at times. Is that right? Now look at this. According to the Sumerian doctrine, in the book the Enuma Elish, it talks about these 12 gods, scientists called the Anunnaki. Of the head of the Anunnaki was a god named Enki. Enki was the head of the 12 at that time. Like Shabazz was the head of the Council of the God scientists at that particular time. He didn't find, whenever one does not find favor among the 12, he's exiled out of the circle. The law of Sharia, or the law of Islam, or the rules of laws of God have always been among us. And whenever you break that law, you're exiled from the circle, like Shabazz was, like the Indian 16,000 years ago was from India, like the white man was 6,000 years cast out of Arabia. Whenever you break the law of the original man, you're cast out, or you're given just ice, which is justice. Now, damn. Look at this. Enki the head of the Anunnaki, which is 12 scientists, couldn't get the council to go along with him. So Enki was exiled to the underworld, which you call today Africa. The Sumerians called Africa Apsu. When Enki was driven to the netherworld, he became Enki Apsu, the god of the underworld. Like Shabazz was taken or exiled from Arabia to what you got or say today, which is called Africa. Damn. Shabazz is Enki Apsu, according to the Sumerian legend, who was exiled or put out of the circle of the council of that time. Now, when Shabazz meaning great people or great takers, and that, if you go into the etymological root of the name Shabazz, you will find it broken up into all of the ancient names in Africa and in the Middle East. Shah also, the prefix Shah, comes from the ancient Sumerian Persian root, which means a king or a ruler. Ba comes from the ancient Egyptian, which means the second self, the divine essence or spirit of God. The word Baz means a bird, Shabazz. That's why you have some Egyptians, pharaohs called Shabaka, the queen of Sheba, sometimes called Shaba, Seba or Saba, the ancient southern Arabian people of Saudi Arabia, All these names, Habasha, Shaba, Seba, the queen of Sheba, all these etymological names has its root in the name by which all of them come from, which is Shabazz, which is the original name of our nation and tribe. All nations and tribes come from and descend from the original God tribe, Shabazz. We were the first to discover the present holy city of Mecca in the fertile Nile Valley, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. Ever since the earth has been rotating in the pocket that it was found in for 66 trillion years. Now, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan said in closing the gap, what Shabazz did, and by the way, in chapter 70 of the Holy Quran, chapter 70, it says that the angels, the spirit, will descend or ascend, I believe it is. I'll find it for you, chapter 70. Chapter 70 is the ways of ascent. Chapter 70, verse 4. It says, to him ascend the angels and the spirit in a day, the measure of which is 50,000 years. The 50,000 year period of the tribe of Shabazz is mentioned in the Quran, chapter 70. Scholars can't explain what it is, but what that 50,000 year period is making reference to is a universal change in the black man's history. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, and even Malcolm, who was taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, bear witness. There is a star that appears over one of the pyramids of Egypt every 50,000 years. That star that appears over that pyramid in Egypt, or Kemet, is that red and blue star that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, that Master Farad Muhammad pointed out to him, appears in the southeastern skies every 50,000 years, a blue and a red star. That is a sign or signal of a universal change. Every time that blue and red star appears, it is a sign of a universal change in the history of the black man, bearing witness that the star temple that they call Kemet, or Egypt's wisdom, records history in accord with the canopy that they call the greater macrocosm or temple, which is the recording of the universe, which bears witness that Egypt is older than some 16,000 or 6,000 or 15,000 years. The whole history of the world and the universe is written inside the pyramids of Egypt. Part of that 25,000 years, what we call Mother Book, is written in the pyramids of Kemet or Egypt. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that Kemet or Egypt, with all its technological splendor and advanced civilization, was built in the black man's fall. Egypt is not even the zenith of the original man's wisdom. Only 50% of the original man's brain power went into building the pyramids, and the white man can't even figure that out. Now, Shabazz, because he could not get the other scientists of the Council of the Gods to agree with him. Whenever we go into council, they don't agree, they deliberate, you don't find favor with the scientists, you have to go or as exile if your idea is not found in favor with the scientists. So he took his family, our particular father, this particular history took his family, us, down into the jungles of what you call today Africa, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us at that time it was called East Asia. East Asia. We broke off from Arabia. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that some of us pre-Shabazz people could be found in the northern section that stayed there in each part of what you call Ethiopia, and also the northern section of Africa, what you call Egypt. Some of us stayed. But he said the bulk of us, he took our family, his family, down into the jungles of East Asia to conquer the wild beasts, to conquer the animal life, and also went down there and built civilization in the interior of the jungle. You see that today. There are different levels to our ancient civilizations of Africa. What you see in Africa today is magnificent, but it is not the zenith of the ancient black man's wisdom. There are different levels to the ancient civilizations of ancient wisdom of Africa. Now, globally speaking, let's prove this. There are two types of black folks on the earth. Now, Elijah Muhammad taught us that when the scientists took us down there, because of the atmosphere, because of the change of our diet, his wisdom that we were being taught, it caused a physiological change in the black man's features, beautiful features, which show you the ability and the wisdom of the black God to change us whenever he willed. Our hair was not as kinky as it is now. Our nose was not as broad, our lips were not thick. These are beautiful, magnificent features. But just to show you, we did not always look like this. Not that this is ugly features. These are beautiful features, but the original man, we didn't always have these particular features. Until 50,000 years ago, when one of our dissatisfied scientists took us down into the jungles of East Asia. They're living in the rough sun, eating all types of food. Globally speaking, now let's bear witness on Elijah Muhammad on this. There are two types of black folks that exist on this planet today. There's the black man of sub-Saharan Africa. Beautiful, thick nose, thick lips, kinky hair. Beautiful features, that good hair, right? But then you have the black man. You have the Eastern Ethiopian opposed to the Western Ethiopian. The Eastern Ethiopian, black is night, tar blue black. Thin aquiline nose, thin lips, straight hair. The black man of India, straight hair, thin nose, aquiline nose, thin lips. The black Yemenite, the black man of Arabia, black as night with thin nose, thin lips, aquiline nose, and straight hair. There are two different phenotypes to the ancient black or African world, which bears witness that there was a physiological change in our history of the black man. As Sheikh Anta Diop points out in his book, just because you find bones of a man with thin nose, thin lips, aquiline nose, it does not mean a Caucasian, because thin nose, thin lips, and straight hair was one of the original features of the ancient black phenotypes on this planet, which bears witness to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that at one time our features were not as they were now. Now look at this. He wanted to make a people closer to nature, and that would be indestructible. Shabazz. Look at this. When Shabazz took us down into East Asia or Africa, another school of thought came in. Prior to the time of Shabazz doing what he did, not only was there a change in in our physiology, there was a change in the theology of the black god. Prior, if you notice, the African worship of the great spirit in the sky, which is a spook god. Sorry, African scholars. Your worship of a theriopomorphic god, the worship of animals, which you find in parts of Africa, is not the original worship of the ancient pre-dynastic Egypt or the early African civilization. There was a transference, a discontinuance of the worship of the anthropomorphic black god and goddess worship, which predated the worship of the animalistic or animism or the theriopomorphic animal worship, which is characteristic in Egypt and certain parts of Africa. Andrew Lang, E.O. James points this out, that the Zulus in South Africa originally worshipped a black god called Nkululu. Nkululu was a black god. But when the Amatangos got their hands on the worship of Nkululu, Nkululu was no longer a black god, anthropomorphic, a man. He became the great spirit in the sky, which bears witness to the transference of, as we move from the root of civilization down into the jungles of East Asia and spread out through the planet, we started to lose the light that we came from when we descended down into the jungles.
See, God.
That's why there are different African civilizations that have great wisdom, but you can't exactly point out who God is.
Beautiful teachings.
But you can point out the great spirit in the sky. Because that's a part of the teaching that developed later as you fell 50,000 years ago. Now look at this. Pre-dynastic ancient Egyptian worship was the worship of the black man as God. But in our fall, our descent, we lost the wisdom that we originally had. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said every 25,000 years, there's a God that comes. His wisdom, teaching, theology is different than the previous God. This God had a theology and wisdom and belief 50,000 years ago when he took us down into the jungles of East Asia. Now let's get into this. Master Farad Muhammad was coming to look for what? He was coming, the Bible, Quran said God gonna make all things new. Bro.Lashon said you can't have nothing new until you have a new people, because it's through the people, the mind of man, God, that a new world is to come. So in the beginning, the primordial darkness that the original black God used, which is indestructible, God came searching for that indestructible material by which he can build his new world out of. That's why Shabazz had to do what he did, because in him putting us and bringing us down into the jungles of East Asia, it brought us closer to nature, made us indestructible, so that when God came, he can use that material that is indestructible from the beginning to build a new world that would be eternal.
Teach.
Is that right?
Beautiful teachings.
You can't destroy the black man. We like roaches, you crush us, we get right back up and keep going. Is that right?
No, sir.
Keep on going, brother. You can't crush us. You can't destroy us. You step on us, we get right back up and keep going. Pop right back up. Is that right? See? Look at this. Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
Now, when Shabazz took us down into the jungles of East Asia 50,000 years ago, Egypt was built in that fall, that 50,000 year fall, and that's recorded in the pyramids of Kemet. That cycle of history, Richard Newman and Colonel Green talks about in the descending and ascending passages in the 13th chamber of the Grand Gallery of the ascending and descending passages in Kemet, Egypt, coincide with our poles which changed 25,000 years, which is called the Great Year. The Great Year is that 25,000 year mother book or writing in which scriptures is taken from. This is why Albert Churchwood in his book, The Evolution and Origin of Religion, says that the pyramid text in Egypt is the greatest Bible written in stone, which is nothing more than that 25,000 year history or mother book that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us of, that the black man is the author of. Now, these different schools of thought that happened, these different religions of the black man popped up as we moved throughout the planet from our descent from the root, not fully having all the wisdom, but having some of it from the teaching of that particular God that ruled that cycle. Every 25,000 years, there's a God that comes. He's only one that rules, but it's not the same one, the same way it is with the president. President never dies. The person that sits in the seat dies. That's why there's a vice president, and he comes and sits in the seat of the president, and he becomes it, but the person himself dies. So it is with God. When one God, he may have died within 200 years or 1,000. But then there's another God designated that comes sit in his seat and bring a new wisdom. This is how the ancient civilizations of the black man evolved. From the wisdom of these 12 major gods. 12 major and 12 minor scientists or gods. Now, 35,000 years in our lessons, it says, what is the birth record of said others in Islam? Buddhism is 35,000 years old. Christianity is 551 years old. If you subtract 35,000 years from 50,000 years, you get what? You get about, I think, 15,000 years, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, Doc.
15,000 years.
Yes, sir.
15,000 years after Shabazz took us down, Buddhism, Hinduism popped up on the Indus Valley civilization. Some of the wisdom in Hinduism or Buddhism, as I showed in previous lectures, is true, but it's carried on and covered up with a lot of the madness that the Hindu or Buddhists have added to it. Incarnations, the worship of idols and stones. The adepts in secret understood that in order to encounter the black god of scientists, they were encountered through the worship of the ancient Near Eastern cult statue. The adepts understood that the statue wasn't God, but that God was encountered through the black body. But the ignorant of our people worship cows, bulls, trees, because they did not understand. Because remember, God had been a secret since the deportation of the moon 66 trillion years ago. This is why Muslim scholars in Arabic, the word for unseen is ghaib, and you say it means the unseen, but that's not what it means. The Arabic word ghaib comes from the word gaba, which means that which withdraws its presence or goes into hiding or absents itself. Well, if one of his attributes is shahid or zahir, the present or the evident, and one means the unseen, which means he can hide himself. When did God hide himself? When did he absent himself or withdraw his presence? We're taught he withdrew his presence or absented himself 66 trillion years ago, when the gods withdrew their wisdom from the public. In the Bible, it speaks of the same thing. The Greek word asimatos means the hidden or the unseen. It does not mean or have anything to do with something you cannot see. It means not visibly present or out of range or out of sight. For instance, there's a building downtown that we can't see from standing right here. But if we get in a car and we drive downtown, we can see the local city hall. But standing right here, we cannot see it. It is out of sight. It is out of range. It is out of vision. So it is with the wisdom and reality of God. It was absent, hidden, removed from the public until a specified time. Now, from Buddhism or Hinduism came this Asian group who had Hinayana, Mahavira, split from Buddhism. Later schools of thought came down the line. Taoism, Confucianism, Baha'i, Shinto. Buddhism spread all over Nepal, Tibet, Zen Buddhism over Asia, Japan, and China. All from ancient Indian black man 35,000 years ago, 16,000 years ago. Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the original man, the Indians, were exiled from India. In our lesson number 1, Supreme Wisdom, the 1 to 14, what you call, if I'm not mistaken, the knowledge, culture, the degree. The 1 to 14, Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, says in question and answer 3, why do we let half original man Columbus discover the poor part of the planet Earth? Because the original man is the God and owner of the earth and knows every square inch of it and has chosen for himself the best part. He did not care about the poor part. Columbus was a half original man which was born in Italy, which is southeast Europe. His full name was Christopher Columbus, and the place he discovered was called North America. He found the Indians here who were exiled from India 16,000 years ago. They are original people. Before we even get into that history, how is Columbus, I asked the brother study group, how is Columbus a half original man? And who is the we that let him discover the poor part of the planet? The we is the original God, scientist, Allah, supreme being, a black man of Asia. That's the we. Now, how is Columbus a half original man? One of his parents had to be a black man, a woman. Well, what we don't realize, Elijah Muhammad taught us, and I'm going to chop this real quick. Columbus' father was a black man, a Moor. His name was Domingo Colon. His mother was a Caucasian woman. Her name was Susana Fonterosa. That's how Columbus was a half original man. Because the Moors, the blacker Moors, who ruled Europe for nearly 1,000 years, conquered Spain, ruled Spain, built irrigation systems, built and put knowledge, wisdom, libraries, taught them how to take a bath, bury their dead. It was the Moors from North Africa, Morocco. They taught the cracker during the Dark Ages. They got them up when they conquered Europe and they spread Islam to Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, to the gates of Vienna, Sicily. Is that right? It was the blacker Moors.
Yes, sir.
Huh? And Columbus came from southern Europe.
Teach, man.
Where the Moors had conquered and mixed blood with the European. That's why some of the Sicilians and some of the Portuguese are dark. Some of the French look dark because of the Moors. Columbus' father was a blacker Moor who taught him navigation. We taught the cracker in Europe navigation, shipbuilding. Is that right? Astronomy. We taught them. We're the masters and gods of it. Is that right?
Beautiful teachers, beloved, my God.
The word atlas is from the Arabic word atlas, which means a book of maps. Did you know that? The Moors introduced soda. They created soda. Came from the Moors. Calendar system. The wonderful, magnificent libraries of Spain in Cordoba were set up by the blacker Moors. The siesta. All that come from the Moors. Now, that's how Columbus was a half original man. Let me drop this on you. How did we let half original man Columbus discover the poor part of the planet Earth? And Manly P. Hall is one of the most renowned Masons on the planet, who wrote The Secret Teachings of All Ages, wrote Man, the Grand Symbol of the Mysteries, and he also wrote a book called The Secret Destiny of America. In Manly P. Hall's book, Secret Destiny of America, he talks about a black-robed individual who counseled and guided Columbus on his first voyage. This black-robed individual, Manly P. Hall, compares this black-robed guide to the angel Gabriel that guided Prophet Muhammad. Thus, the we that guided him was the council of the gods, and that black-robed individual was one of the scientists that counseled him on how and what to get to, how to get to the new world. We let him get in. We showed him how to get in. We let him come in.
Beautiful.
So now back to this history of the black man.
Yes, sir.
16,000 years ago, Indians, Bro.Lashon Muhammad taught us, broke the rule of Islam. And they were exiled from India. They walked through Asia, up through the Bering Straits, out of the Bering Straits into Alaska, down into Canada, down into North America, went down into Mexico, spread out all over the Caribbean, Central and South America. The original man.
Yes, sir.
Go get the book by Ivan Van Sertima called They Came Before Columbus. Go get the book by Lamont Muhammad called The Blacks of Mexico. Go get the book by Eric Williams, The History of the Caribbean from Castro to Columbus. Go get that book. The ancient black man of Mexico that was there before the Mayans, there before Incas, the Aztecs, was the Olmec civilization of black African origin. Before Ponce de Leon, before Balboa, before Marco Polo, before any of these crackers and devils sailed the seven seas, the black man had been in the Western Hemisphere for thousands of years and had planted wisdom and knowledge and technology here in Mexico, in Peru, in Puerto Rico, in Cuba. We had already been for thousands of years. Go get the book by Indus Kemet Kush, What They Never Told You in History Class. The Indian came in 16,000 years ago. About 19,000 years after 35,000 years. East Indian, Bro.Lashon Muhammad said, was exiled here. And if you look at the ritual of the Indian has been trying to get back to where he came from for 16,000 years. That's why all of their rituals deal with pain and suffering, because they're trying to get back to Mother Earth and Father Sky. All of their rituals deal with pain, because they feel that's the only way to get back to where they originally came from, which was India, the mother continent where we exiled them from 16,000 years ago. It was exiled to this part of the earth, and scientists are now bearing witness that we've been, our brothers, which is us, the original man, was here 16,000 years ago. And we'll find signs of us all up and down California, the western Gulf of Mexico, all of the Gulf Coast. They find big African giant black heads of the Olmec civilization. In La Venta in Mexico, in Peru, they find us. That was 16,000 years ago. That happened. We on this descent from the tribe of Shabazz. I just dealt with the origin of the moon, all the scientific evidence. And by the way, that splitting of the moon is mentioned also in chapter 54 of the Holy Quran, where it says the hour drew nigh and the moon was rent asunder. Yusuf Ali says the moon was cleft asunder. Brother, if you hold a piece of a book in your hand, I cleft it or rent this book from your hand, it means I ripped it from your hand. Bearing witness that the moon was rent or cleft from something in chapter 54. It talks about that, about the earth, the moon being rent or cleft from the earth 66 trillion years. That's mentioned in chapter 54. But now, 6,000 years ago. Now, this history with the Indian spread out here. You have the Hopi, you have the Iroquois Indians, you have all the different tribes in India. Bro.Lashon Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan teaches us whenever you have a proliferation of different tribes of the same people, there is a knowledge or light that is missing that would evolve them from a tribe to a nation. Is that right? And this, before I go on, this Shabbat, it's just so much. It's so much. It's so much. It's so much. It's a whole lot. There's a whole lot I didn't say.
Come on, beloved.
It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot I left out. This history takes 6 hours.
Beautiful teacher. You're busting my brains out, kid.
Look at this. Shabazz also deals with the Hebrew. In Hebrew, it means chosen, elect. In Israel, it means God, tribe of chosen, elect. That's what Shabazz means. Also, that tribe of Shabazz is symbolically written in the Hebrew Bible as Israel, and the Hebrews is that tribe of Shabazz. Also, dealing with Haile Selassie, Haile Selassie, who came from Menelik. Menelik, who thrashed the Italians. In fact, the Italians got revenge on Ethiopia because of that. That's why they're suffering today. They call Ethiopia the Black Haiti because of what the Italians did in retaliation against them for what Menelik II did to them. But Haile Selassie, descendant of Menelik, Menelik was the son of King Solomon and Sheba. The word Sheba etymologically is rooted in the name Shabazz. It means great people or great takers. Sheba comes from the southern South Arabian black tribe Saba or Hudhud. And Hudhud or Saba come from who? Shabazz, who originally lived in the root of civilization, the Garden of Eden, the holy city of Mecca, place from which knowledge and wisdom of the original man first started when the planet was found. The planet, not just Earth, but the place on which the knowledge of the black man first began, which was himself, his thought, his idea manifested. Now, the Indian was exiled to America. America, Elijah Muhammad said, was designated by the gods as a prison island, like Africa was. Island of exiles at that time. God needed a strong people that he could use to build a civilization. So, right man, he studied 3 rebels. 50,000-year-old rebel, a 16,000-year-old rebel, and a 6,000-year-old rebel. White man had some kind of little scant history of enslaving himself. He died off. He couldn't bear slavery. So he looked at the Indian. The Indian couldn't bear slavery either. They died off. They couldn't bear it. They got sick. They died off. They couldn't handle the weight of slavery. So they went to Africa, where the tribe of Shabazz is, and found the only people that could have went through such a grueling, bestial, dehumanizing treatment and conditions such as slavery. The tribe of Shabazz from Africa, the black man. Had not we underwent what we went through as a result of what our God scientists, our particular father at that time, took us through, making us indestructible material and closer to nature, we would have never been able to suffer through and get through slavery. What you have to understand, the black man in America is an altogether new black man.
That's right.
If you look through the 66 trillion year period, the 50,000 year, the 16,000 year period, and what the white man has done in 6,000 years to us, and what he did for 500 years to us in this country, we are altogether new people made ready and fit for a God to take us and make us into that which would never, ever end. That's why our children are ready, because they're made from a material that is indestructible. And they are ready for an indestructible wisdom from an indestructible teacher that will stimulate their minds to turn them back, to evolve them into what they once were. That's why our children don't, our children are rebellious, and it's a natural rebellion against evil and falsehood and lies. We don't want to go to school to learn about no damn Abraham Lincoln never, George Washington never told a lie and chopped down the damn cherry tree. Abraham Lincoln released the slaves, and that was a damn lie. No one wants to go to school anymore and hear those lies about these crackers and these devils that tell us continuous lies about our people and our history. No one wants to hear about Custer's last stand. No one wants to hear about that madness. Or the Louisiana Purchase. A bunch of damn lies through our history that you continue to tell our people. Nobody wants to hear that madness. So our children, they rebel. What the hell I gotta go to school for? I don't want to hear this. So naturally they rebel. And that's a sign that the time has come for the resurrection. Whenever you see rebellion, that is a sign for something new, because you out-of-date, obsolete, old teachers cannot teach our children with the same old madness and foolishness that they enslaved our fathers with. You either have a new wisdom and a new teaching and a new lesson for the new time, or our children are going to overrun you and you're going to lose your job and be put out of the teaching business.
Oh.
Stop teaching madness and lies to our children.
Yes, sir.
That Jesus is white. Columbus discovered America, which is a damn lie.
Come on.
And that the Mary had a baby from a spook, which is a genetic biological impossibility. You see? And that spooks and spirits make human women pregnant. It's against the laws of nature. Damn. In her egg, her ovum is 23 chromosomes. And in the man's sperm is 23 chromosomes that go together to make 46 on the biological scale to produce a child. The Quran says in chapter 76 that God created man from sperm mixed with ovum. God don't even support the foolishness of your stupidity. Neither does the Bible. Well, that's a whole nother subject right there. I ain't even going into that today. We'll touch that in the future when we deal with the Jesus subject. Now this white man.
Come on now.
Last part of our fall deals with this devil. And I've already taught on who the devil is and his genetic makeup. He's an altogether new man on the planet, and he was the final death blow in the fall of the original man. You Masons in secret, you make me sick. You always how can you be a Mason in this day and time? I'm going to take a subject one day where I'm going to uncover all your secrets in Freemasonry, the Scottish and York Rite. And I'm going to cover your 32 and 33 degrees. Stop playing. Black man, how in the hell can you be a Mason when you are the father of Mason? Mason means sons of the light. Who is the light? The light is the black man. The sons of the light is the devil. Come on, man. They ask you in Masonry, when you walk in the hot sands, are you walking or are you riding? Why do they ask that? And you like a fool say, I was walking. You was a fool. You wasn't walking the hot sands. The white man was walking the hot sands. We put him in the cable tow. We put him on a lambskin apron. We put him in chains and drove him and beat him 2,200 miles over the Arabian desert. That's in your Masonic ritual called the cable tow. You go in, they put a lambskin apron on you, put you in chains, put the juice in the electric mat, and beat you with a paddle, pretending to drive you across the hot sands. That got nothing to do with the black man's history. That's the crackers' history. That's why they'll ask you, dummy, when a real master will ask you, Mason, at Prince Hall fool, they'll ask you, did you come by foot or by camel or horse? And if you say you came by foot, he know he's dealing with the beast, not a master or civilized man.
Damn. Come on, man.
Let me say this to you. What walks on 4, 3, and 2 legs? Huh, Masons? What walks on 4, 3, and 2 legs? What's the secret? I tell you the secret. Number 1, Mason, what walks on 4 legs is the beast that was in the caves walked on his all fours. What walks on 3 legs is the man with a cane. What walks on 2 legs is the civilized man who stands at a 45-degree angle, making right angles to the earth. That's what 2 legs. I just let your secret out the bag. You have no secrets. After the 32nd degree, you graduate from the square to the compass. After the 32nd degree, you're no longer called a Mason. To the 33rd degree, called an honorary degree, you're called a Muslim Shriner. In secret, you're called a Muslim son. Huh? And then you have to study from 35 to 50 years. You graduate from the Bible to the Quran, from the square to the compass. That's a whole nother subject for it, and I'm not even going to get into that today. But there are no more secrets. No more secrets. They just came out with this silly damn movie, 10,000 BC. 10,000 BC.
Teach on it.
White man ain't been here 6,000 years, Harlow. How the hell you gonna have some crackers running in Africa over a ravine in bushes talking about 10,000 BC? Lucy Ramapithecus is 500,000 years old. They found in East Africa. They found bones in Asia of some 500 million years called Zinj-Ramapithecus. Zinj means black. Australopithecus, 100 billion years. We was here long before you crackers was even a thought in your daddy's mind. So how in the hell you gonna make a movie 10,000? The whole genome map. They took samples of every person on this planet of 100 ethnic backgrounds and found that all of them had their common DNA root in a common African black man and black woman, telling you that the original man and woman was not a cracker, it wasn't an Asian, it wasn't a Japanese, it was the black man. So when you make a movie called 10,000 BC, don't even think about you crackers. You weren't even here.
Ooh.
We was here. In fact, the brown man wasn't even here 10,000 BC. The red man and the yellow man wasn't here 10,000 BC. Only the original man was here. Dr. Runoko Rashidi, who wrote his timely classic piece called The Africa's Early Presence in Asia, said the black man had been in Asia for 90,000 years. Huh? We've been in Australia for 50,000 years. The Bushmen or Pygmies, the Aboriginal blacks of Australia, been there for at least 50,000 years. How you crackers talking about you've been here 10,000 BC? Come on, man. We're gonna make a movie talking about 10,000 BC and you only been here, your raggedy behind only been here for 6,000 years. Your history ain't that go back to that time. 10,000, you got a bunch of crackers with dreadlocks running through a bunch of woolly mammoths in the movie. You know that's a damn lie. All praises is to Allah.
Teach, man. Beautiful.
Praise be to Allah, brother. It makes me angry when these crackers lie. That's why you got to know the truth.
That's right.
I couldn't give you the whole history of the universe like I wanted. If I had the flag of Islam, I could have broken it all down with mean freedom, justice, and equality, what it means. I didn't have time to go into it. This history, it takes about 5 to 6 hours. I'm learning to try to get it over maybe in an hour or 2 hours. It's not easy to teach this history. It's hard to teach this history because you got to go into the cycles and you have to be able to break down each one and show the black man's continuous history. And, you know, brothers and sisters,
Teach, man.
it is incumbent that all of us as registered believers in the Nation of Islam, Nation of Islam, Nation of Gods and Earths, 5%, one and the same. That's what is the 5%, the poor part of the planet Earth. They're the poor righteous teachers who do not believe in the teachings of the 10% and are all wise and know who the living God is and teach that the living God is the Son of Man, the supreme being, a black man of Asia, and who teach freedom, justice, and equality to all the human family of the planet. Otherwise known as civilized people, also is Muslim and Muslim son. The Nation of Islam are the 5%. So we have to realize, don't let the 10% element get within our ranks to try to make this. You know, Dr. Elijah Muhammad said that all of us is Allah. Every righteous Muslim is Allah. All Muslims are Allahs, gods. See? The nature of the God, the black God, is Islam, which is his nature, which is mathematics, which is the highest form of righteousness. So it says in English lesson C, well, how many original Muslims are there in North America? These original Muslims that are in English lesson C1 are called in lesson number 2, Allah, the supreme being who wrote Bible and Quran, who is the original man who's mentioned in student enrollment. The population of original people. This original people is Allah, the supreme being, a black man of Asia, and called original Muslims in English lesson C. All Muslims are Allahs. We are all Allah. But there's one who's a supreme Allah, is that right? Whose personal name is Master Farad Muhammad. But that's a whole nother subject for another time. But what we have to realize is that if we don't learn to teach our children the wisdom of the times, right, they're going to run over us. They're going to roll over us. So we have to catch up with the time. So brothers and sisters, please pick this book up by True Islam, the Book of God. Please purchase it. Our Savior has arrived by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Message to the black man, our Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And get the Theology of Time series lectures for all registered Muslims, all the gods of the nation of gods in the 5%, which is the nation of Islam. Make sure you have your lessons and study your lessons, because it is the keys to unlock all wisdom. It is the root and fulfillment of all wisdom. It is the zenith and is superior to all wisdom that has ever been. I really didn't have time. I could have went into this more in depth, but this time wouldn't permit it. So inshallah, the next lecture, inshallah, is going to be, by the will of Allah God, it's going to be dealing with, we want to ease into finally what we've been trying to get for the last 12 lectures on this history of Jesus. This is going to cover or go into a lot of secrets of Jesus. We got to cover this, we promised to. So by the grace of Allah, we want to go into the next coming lectures, Jesus history. And we want to go into who is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Who is he? What does he mean to us in the world? And we have to go into the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, break down who he is. We have to be able to prove in no limit of time who these men are. These men are the axis by which the power of this planet rotates on today. The power of God is being manifested through the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan is that one that the world has been looking for. The scriptures speak of him being born in a manger. Manger comes from the French word manger, which means to eat. And if you know anything about farming,
Come on, man.
any one of us that ever lived on a farm know that a manger is a trough-like contraption, a thing that you put hay and livestock in for the beasts to come from all over the different parts of the farm to eat at that particular point. This is the world manger. America is the world manger by which all of the beasts, meaning different kinds of wicked people, come from all over the world to eat at this particular point. This is the world's manger that the beasts control. This is why they can go feed Somalia and all these different places all over the world. This is the manger. This is why God called it the wilderness of North America. And then Babylon, which is a cage, a very unclean and hateful bird. This is where that Jesus is to be born. He's to be born in a manger. He was risen from the dead. Now you know it ain't talking about nobody from the... Once your body decomposes and you go back to bones, you're not rising no more. Lesson number 2 says, we have no history of any man ever returning from a physical death, but there's a chance for mental death. And therefore the lost found was once dead mentally, but many of them have revived from it. But they were not physically dead, they were only mentally dead. There's no such thing as a man. This is against the science of biology and forensic science and genetics. You know damn well a physical body that decomposes and go back to the back to the ground, to the earth, does not come back. And as Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if you do die and go back to the earth and come back, where did they bury you at? And if you say you're going to die and go someplace better than where God intended for you to be right now, then we might as well do a Jim Jones, drink some poisonous Kool-Aid, and let's go. Let's drive our car off the cliff holding hands and I see you on the other side. No, you're going by yourself if you decide to do something crazy like that, because I know from science, mathematics, and nature, that we were created to live this life to the fullest and that we don't get another one. Even the roach knows, according to the law of nature, that he only gets one life. Even the roach knows there ain't no damn place you go after you die, because he wouldn't be trying to escape from your death if he knew he only get one life. Huh? All the animals know that.
That's right.
Huh? And even Jesus said in the 22nd chapter of the book of Matthew that God is the God of the living and not the God of the dead. Huh? Let the dead bury the dead. Why would you look for the living among the dead? Even Jesus knew. Ain't no living person coming from no physical death. No, please. You're going to rise up and go up in the sky, but the earth is turning. Heaven is up, hell is down. See how they lied to us and they messed and screwed us over. Talking about heaven is in the sky. You're going to walk on golden streets in the sky after I die. I'm going to walk with milk and honey and gold and silver. Mansions in the sky. All mansions are made from marble, gold, stone, and wood, and all of it comes from under your feet. If it's up, how you going to get it up? If it's in the sky, all of it comes from the planet. If it's up, how you going to get it up? Milk and honey come from the earth. You can get all that while you live. Read the 75th chapter of the Holy Quran.
Oh, man, teach.
In the 75th chapter of the Quran, it tells you in the last days you will be on raised couches, gardens wherein pavilions are, where gardens and rivers flow. At the age with 16-year youth's age is never altering in age. It gives you a detailed description of a heaven, not in the sky if you die, but on this earth.
Come on, man, teach, man.
That's another subject. We're going to teach on that in the hereafter. We'll teach on that in not too long from now. What is the hereafter? Where is heaven? Where does it begin? What is it in? What is death? We're gonna take up a subject: heaven and hell, life and death. That's a subject, brother, that we're gonna take up. We're gonna take that up.
Perfect.
We got another subject we gotta tackle, called the original man, Asiatic or African.
Oh.
We gotta deal with that. We gotta deal with that. We gotta deal with who Jesus is. Some of y'all poor brothers and sisters, you still think Jesus is some blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pale-skinned cracker and hippie, huh? You still think he's some milquetoast white man. That's what you think. You think Jesus is some cracker. I had a conversation with the Mormons over a good friend of mine's house one day. When I finished with them, I knew that they would never return to my friend's house.
Oh.
How are you going to come in my house and try to smoothly deceive my people?
Damn.
As you did in the past. I'm a missionary. See, that's why they call themselves missionary. Because the missionary is the one that went to Africa. He went with the Bible, and when he left, he had our land, woman, and resources, and all we was left with was the Bible. Our head was in the sky while he took our resources, our wealth, and our woman. And that's what these crackers and devils are doing today. With their smooth little missionaries that come into the community preaching to our deaf, dumb, and blind brothers and sisters. No, we're going to run you from among us.
Yes, sir.
We're going to do that. Truth casts out falsehood and knocks out his brains. So when we hurl truth at you, it's going to disappear. When truth comes, falsehood, as the Quran says, vanishes. And that's what we're going to do with you so-called missionaries who call yourselves representing John Smith, who's supposed to have been your prophet, and supposed to have been a divine prophet. And after I got finished with them, they didn't want no more of what I had to tell them about John Smith, the Bible. I broke it all down to them. They didn't realize that there was a so-called Negro that can teach them of truth that they couldn't deal with in their own book. How you gonna come and teaching us about the same cracker Jesus that you fooled us with? No, black people are not as dumb and stupid as you think we are today. And you silly handkerchief head preachers and pastors, either you're gonna start teaching the true gospel,
come on now,
or one day the ones that you preach to are gonna come up in your pulpit and kill you in the pulpit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That day is gonna come if we don't start preaching the true gospel of Jesus, not this false, watered down, milk toast, mealy mouth madness that you feed the people with on a daily basis. That God is some spook God. He's a material, immaterial being, where the Bible tells you that God is a man, Yahweh, Ishmael, and man. God is a man of war. God is a man. In Hebrew, Ish and Gabor. He got hands, feet, he talks, he sees, he rides. Jesus calls him the Father. In Greek, an anthropos, a divine man, a logos, a man of glory, a light. God is a man. Paul said that Jesus took on the form of God. God had a form. And Jesus' form was made after the form of God, who also had a form. Huh? So, brothers and sisters, as incumbent, we read our Bible, poison book, pick up our Quran. Muslims and scholars, Masons have this book in secret, by the way. When they get to the 33rd degree, they graduate from the Bible to this book, the Holy Quran. They learn the name of Allah. They learn the true history, really, of who the black man is. Knowing they find out that the black man is God, exemplifying the principles of their 33 degrees, Goma, Oz, and Dubai, wisdom, strength, and beauty, which are the pillars by which all the 33.5 degrees of masonry is built on, and learns that the original man is God. They know in secret, and that's the secret of all secrets, that the black man is God.
Yes, sir.
It can be proven, that we proved in previous, like, go get the theogony. It was proven. It was proven.
Right.
We was proven at no limit of time. So I have to apologize again.
Yes, sir, brother.
That I couldn't really go into this history the way I wanted to tonight. Time just wouldn't permit it. But at another time, we may take up this subject. Maybe we may continue in this history to deal with this subject. But look, now, how much more time do I got, bro? Okay. Now, just to conclude, what have we covered? The moon was not some random occurrence that happened from plate tectonics or mountains. No, that happened by unnatural, unguided occurrence. A. Ringwood points out that the center of the Earth's crust does not produce enough energy to produce a cataclysmic thermonuclear event that was caused 66 trillion years ago by the God scientists of our nation. It doesn't. So it had to be, as he said, an unnatural occurrence that was enacted upon that caused the splitting of the moon from the Earth, the brachial rocks, molten brachial rocks, vanadium, chromium, and manganese samples, tungsten rock isotope samples by Dirk Chung Lee, also the missing planet and exploding planet theory postulated by Michael Overton and Tom Van Flanders, missing planet theory, the comet belt, the asteroid belt that exists between Mars and Jupiter, also the craters in the moon, in the Earth, which suggests that there's a piece of the Earth missing, and the rock isotope samples from the moon all bear witness that the Earth and the moon was once one planet. The magnetic attraction of the moon on the waters of the Earth causing the tides to shift back and forth, causing the waters of the Earth to balance out and equalize. If it wasn't for that magnetic pull of the sun and moon on the waters of the Earth, the waters would seek its own level and drown out civilization. So it is the moon that controls the balance, causes that equality or balance. That's why in the flag of Islam, our moon represents equality. All right? All of that, the carbonaceous soot, a dark blast material that's on one of Saturn's moons, the literary accounts, all bear witness that the moon and the Earth was once one planet.
That's right.
All right? But no more for myself. I'd like to greet you in ancient greeting words of peace and perpetual paradise. We say it in Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum.
Like salam, sir.
Yes, sir. Brothers and sisters, with all that truth you just received, how can you not be full? I'd like to greet you in ancient greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, and by the way, be on the lookout for the next DVD. They will be coming. We're going to keep coming. That's our duty. We're trying to awaken our people and get them on a mission. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum.